Hi, welcome to Lockdown Lessons Live. I'm Toby. Today we've a thorough lesson planned for you. Today we're going to be looking specifically at how to write amazing essays. I've been a teacher for many years, and when the pennies dropped for me some years ago, I realised that if I could teach students a step-by-step guide as to how to write their essays, their reading analysis, then they would always know what to do. Frequently, students of mine have asked, what do I do now? I didn't know what to write. And I'm sure we all feel a bit like this when we have to do something like an essay or something technical. We don't know that first step. So my approach in teaching English is to give everybody a very clear step-by-step guide so that they know what to do and what to do next, so that there aren't those big questions. What am I going to be writing? I don't know what to do. So today we're going to be looking at how to write amazing essays. And if you follow the step-by-step guide, you absolutely will write amazing essays, and that is the purpose of today's session. The sun is shining in Cornwall, looking out my window. Unlike last time, there's lots of blue sky, and spring is hopefully on its way. So the plan then is to give you very clearly a guide as to how to write amazing English essays and how to always be in control and know what to do. So we're going to start at some probably quite familiar things for those of you that have been attending these lockdown lessons, with this idea that language is a code. So taking the word snake, it is very much a word and not the animal. It's the animal represented in sound and shape. And that English is a code. In order to really understand it, we need a code breaking system, and that is our approach at school. So we have a code breaking system. Many of you, I'm sure, are aware of what this is. So here is our triangle. This is our code breaking system. If you don't have this written down right now, don't worry about it. Please go back and watch the video again, or some of the earlier ones that sort of explain this. But that triangle is very much our code breaking system, and we take it to language. So when we look at text on the page, we take our triangle to it and we identify the features in that language. So as you can see in the triangle, we begin at the metaphoric, we begin at the personification, the simile and the juxtaposition. That's the image part of language. Then we move on to monosyllabic and polysyllabic. So that's to do with the shape of words. So monosyllable is a word with one syllable in it. Monosyllabic, like snake. And polysyllabic is a word with many syllables, like discombobulated. Those two things mean different things. I wonder if you can write in the chat what you think those that might imply. If something is monosyllabic, what do you think that might imply? Okay, so moving on, then we've got the sibilance, and sibilance is the S sound. We hear that in snake, and then of course we've got the plosives, which are the P, B, and D and T sounds, and then we've got the vowel sounds, the A, E, I, O, U sounds. Now, if you're joining me for the first time, all that probably doesn't mean much. But this triangle is a way for us to identify different features of language and a way for us to read language. As I said at the beginning, please go over and have a look at some of those lessons that we've done initially, particularly on image, shape and sound. And that will give you a better idea as to how these work. So the reason I'm stumbling over my words a bit is because my laptop's on a stand, and I pushed it over and I almost lost it, which was pretty terrifying. Okay, so language is a code, and here is our code breaking system. These are features of language, and just as that triangle is shaped to the point at the bottom, so too does our thinking about language. When we think about language, when we look at it, we start at the metaphor, we move on to the shape, and the last thing we do is look at the sound. So it's a real step-by-step guide: image, shape, and sound. So today the plan is to look to teach how to write amazing essays, and this lesson is very much an amalgamation of the last 9 lessons that we've done so far, and we'll do these every couple of weeks or so, just to demonstrate what it all looks like in practice. So today's task, we're going to be writing, well, I've already written, to be honest with you. I'll be showing you how to write an essay, and this essay will be about an example of literature. Particularly today, or rather specifically today, literature by this amazing poet, A. Housman. And his poem that I'm going to read to you and we're going to analyse today is a poem that I've loved for years, and it's very, very beautiful. So while I read it, I'd like you please to have a look and just have a think about this poem, and have a think about whether you can see images in the poem, whether you can see shape in the poem, and whether the poet is using sound on purpose. Okie dokie, so here goes. Into my heart an air that kills from yon far country blows. What are those blue remembered hills? What spires, what farms are those? That is the land of lost content. I see it shining plain, the happy highways where I went and cannot come again. So I think that this poem is beautiful, but I'd forgive you immediately if you thought, I've got no idea what that poem is all about. So I certainly felt like perhaps that when I started reading poetry. My English teacher encouraged me to stop trying to make sense of it and to start trying to feel it. So he also often gave me information about the background of the particular poem. So this poem is written by A. Housman. There he is. And we'll have a look at it while I tell you about it. So A. Housman was a classics scholar, a classics teacher of Latin, and he was an absolutely incredibly intelligent man, and his day job was teaching Latin and all the classics and Greek, very, very complicated stuff. And often is the case with hyper intellectual people, he was quite closed and quite insular, and his life and what he did in his life sort of transpired after he died, and after he lived, I should say. And it turns out that A. Housman had the beginnings of a love affair that was never returned. He loved somebody else, and that love was never returned. And with that in mind, this poem takes on a bit of a different life, knowing that the subject matter might very well be about not being loved back, and also not only not being loved back, but the sense that there was a love affair, but it had to end, and that love effectively dies. So thinking about that, the death of love, and thinking about the ideas around not being loved back, it starts to make a bit more sense. Into my heart an air that kills, from yon far country blows, are those blue remembered hills, What spires, what farms are those? That is the land of lost content. I see it shining plain, the happy highways where I went and cannot come again. So with that in mind, the poem does something a little bit special, I think. There are, of course, elements of the poem that are a bit confusing. From yon far country blows, for instance. Not quite sure what that means. Even as a teacher of English, I could probably make a guess. But it is a bit confusing. But there's stuff in that poem that isn't confusing. The sense that things are lost, land of lost content, and the sense that whatever that feeling was, whatever that place of love was, is no longer possible to visit, to travel through, to that love can no longer live again. So it does seem strange on a patchy sunny morning in the midst of a pandemic to talk about and to explore a poem about loss and sadness. And I thought long and hard about this yesterday in my planning. Why show a poem that is sad, that has a great deal of grief in it? But of course, that's what literature's for. Housman died many, many years ago and wrote that poem, over 100 years ago. But certainly in my life, I've picked up that text and looked at that poem and not felt so alone. Writers show us the way in many regards, but sometimes we feel certain things, and whether it's darkness, whether it's grief, whether it's loss, and you can bet your bottom dollar that there's a writer that's written about it. And that transaction is amazing. When you read something about something that's dark, like loss, and you can see that it's almost like the writer is holding out their hand for you to take so that you are not alone. There's also that exploration about what it means to be alive. Loss is very much a part of life. And even though now we're in the midst of this awful, awful pandemic, there's an important journey we should take. It's important to explore feelings of loss and grief and not bottle them up, which is awfully dangerous. Poetry, art, music are often outpourings of emotion, and I believe that kind of art is the best of us. This poem is going to help us today in writing our essay, and I'm going to show you how to do that in an amazing way. And we need a question. So today, the poem's question is, how does the poet convey ideas about loss? So this is just the kind of question that I can imagine my students, I can remember them back in the classroom at my old school, just looking at me and thinking, oh, not this. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to write. But it's good because now we have a plan. We have a step-by-step process as to how to write about language. We've got this. This is the code-breaking system. These are the things that we need to write about when we are confronted by a question. And whatever that question is, how does the poet convey ideas about loss? And essentially, what we must do is, in our answer, we write about the image, we write about the shape, and we write about the sound. And all these things give us, give the examiner or the marker, or even us to a degree, a better idea about the literature in front of us. So, we have a great poem, and we have a good question, and we have a toolkit, our image, shape, sound. And I'm going to talk through image in a second in the poem. I'd just like you, please, to write in the chat, what do you think the poem's about? What do you think it's about? How does it make you feel, and why? How does it make you feel and why? Right, let's have a look at the image. So, this is the part of the question that is not written. This is the thinking part of an essay question. And the first thing we do is we think about broadly how the poem shows ideas about loss, and then we start identifying aspects of language. So, into my heart, an air that kills is an image. Air doesn't kill very often, and killing is something that we do as a species and other animals also. So it's an example of personification. An air that kills is an example of personification. So Kelly, yes, the poem seems like he has lost something that he cared about. Yeah, absolutely. He lost something that he cared about, and that loss is final. Brilliant, well done. Okay, so image then, we've got the land of lost content. Again, that's personification too. So the land is no longer happy. Content means to be happy. Are there any other examples of image there? What else can you spot? Is there any other metaphor or simile or personification? Into my heart, an air that kills. From yon far country blows. What are those blue remembered hills? What spires, what farms are those? That is the land of lost content. I see it shining plain. The happy highways where I went and cannot come again. So happy highways again is an example of personification. So this writer is using, as one of his main techniques, this image device of personification. We've got a land of lost content, we've got happy highways, and we have air that kills. Yeah, well done, Chloe, great. So, that's the image part of the poem, and that's the image part of the poem thought about. It's always good at this point to think about the question. We haven't written anything down yet, we're just thinking, so what are his ideas about loss? So we can imagine this man going to this place that he remembers from a long time before, and it's a place, probably the place where he and this other person had their short love affair. But that love affair, that love is no longer. It is finished and it is over. So what is he saying about that? What is he saying about the fact that it is over? Is he saying anything else? So, is there a nuance, some meaning to do with the fact that it's lost? How is it lost? What is it doing to him now? Yeah, okay, grand. So thanks, Kelly. So he's almost holding on to the past or remembering it. Yeah, absolutely. Very, very good. I agree. He is holding on to the past, and holding on to the past can be encapsulated in a particular kind of practice, grief. Holding on to the past is, he's grieving for it. But grief is addictive. There might be a sense that he is not able to think of anything else. That grief is so blinding. And certainly, like I said before, art, literature, music, poetry, the best of it explores dark subject matter and lets us know that we are not alone, that there is a way through it, and sometimes even a mirror. When you lose the things that you love, if you continue to stare at those, then it's impossible to move on. And there's even a lesson in what Housman is saying, a lesson beyond how to write an essay. Okay, so then we look at the shape. So in this poem, there's a couple of polysyllabic words. So we've got, what are those blue remembered hills? So remembered is polysyllabic, and polysyllabic means many syllables, but it also has meaning too. Polysyllabic words are often complicated and not simple. So there is a sense that this feeling, this looking at these blue remembered hills, I'll go a bit slower, these blue remembered hills, that there is a complexity to looking at them, to thinking about them, to feeling about them. And if we take into account, we know that this is about perhaps a lost love affair, a lost love, somebody that will not love him back, we can certainly understand that feeling perhaps is complicated. It's complicated to look back. That polysyllabic remembered might convey that. Also, if we look at the shape of some of the other words, we've got lots of monosyllabic words. I'd say actually that there are lots of monosyllabic words. So that is the land. So that certainly seems like that is the land of lost content. So other than content there, lots of short monosyllabic words, which suggests a bluntness, a harshness, a toughness of the situation. So if you've just joined us, today we're looking at how to write amazing essays, and in order to do that, we have to read the poem closely, but we have to read the poem with our toolkit, image, shape, sound. And as you can see, we're working through image and shape. So that's before you've written anything down. That's the first thing you do when you write your English essays, is you don't write anything down. You think about it, and you think about it in a really clear way. So many of us rush in to do things. I'm an activist, I rush in and do things. But with reading analysis, you take your time and you go through it in this step-by-step way. Whenever you're asked a question in English literature and English language, particularly when you're asked about English language, this is the process that you take. This is what you do. And actually, if you've got a test, the first thing you do is you work through the pyramid, the triangle, as we're doing now. And now, hopefully, you'll always know that's what you need to do. So that might take some of the pressure off. And the last thing then is we look at the sound. So, I love this poem, and poems like it. This is quite an emotional poem, and I love his ideas, and the pain. I think the pain is almost pretty, if it can be. And you can see those elongated vowels. We've talked about those before. How elongated vowels imitate the sound of pain. What spires, what farms are those? Those elongated vowels sound like he's almost crying. That's my reading of it, but that's what elongated vowels do. They stretch and they imitate. Again, some of this is sounding a bit mad, and you're not used to talking about language in this way. Go and have a look at some of those earlier videos. This is how to do it. Using the triangle, using that systematic process. This is how to think about language, and this is how to write about it too. Okay, and let's have a look at the other elements of sound. So we've got that last line then. So we've got those palatal plosives, they're called. Cannot come, the k sound, which are quite forceful and hard. You can see the vowels are stretching all over the place. The beginning of that second line, the land of lost content. And then that second line there, I see it shining plain. And then, so that sibilant sound, the sibilants suggest either something is being soothed or something is dangerous. You could well imagine the thought of looking at lost love as being something that's dangerous. There's also those H sounds. These are a type of fricative. H is a funny old sound, the way that it's formed in the mouth. Lots of force and lots of effort. Ha, ha, and that sound could imply pain, could imply force, could almost imitate crying again. I'm not suggesting that Housman is a crier. or that's what he was trying to do. It's not crying in a poem, but it's certainly sad and mournful, and he's using these sounds on purpose. He's using the shapes on purpose, and he's definitely using the imagery on purpose. So when we look at language, we look at image, shape and sound, and when we come to write about it, we write about it in that way. And I'm about to show you how. So we've said here is almost holding on to the past or remembering it. I wonder, for those students online, what is problematic about holding on to the past? What is the problem with that? So if you can write that in the chat, what are the problems with holding on to the past? And then we're going to begin our answer. So what's coming up now is a step-by-step guide as to how to write an essay. And there are certain steps that you take, and I'm just going to read those out, but most of it's going to sound quite familiar based on our lesson. You look at the image, you look at the shape, and then you look at the sound, and you collect your ideas about it. That's the first thing you do. Yeah, fantastic, Chloe. He won't move on. He won't move on. He can't move on. There is no moving on. Yeah, absolutely. So there are a few things you do. You answer the question. You show that you understand what's being asked. You introduce the writer's ideas, in this sense that he won't move on. You quote some of the text. The best part of the text to quote is always the stuff with the image in. Then you write about image, then you write about shape, then you write about sound, then you link back to the question. And that's it. That's it for everything you're ever asked in English. There are some more nuances, but that's basically it. And that certainly got me, my MA, my degree, and it's got many of my students, their GCSEs and their A-levels. That's pretty much the nub of it. So yeah, we've got, sometimes the past doesn't really matter too much as it's in the past, but sometimes remembering the past can hurt. Yeah, remembering the past can hurt. Sometimes the past can feel like the present. Yeah, very good, well done. So let's have a look then. So this is the beginning of the essay question. I've just noticed a terrible typo. I do apologise. It's in the top left-hand corner of this screen, and I've written, show that you understand what is being asked. I wrote this last night. I mean being asked. So answer the question, link to it. Show that you understand what is being asked. Housman's poem demonstrates the way in which feelings of loss can overwhelm the senses. He shows that place, the circumstances of loss and grief, the blue remembered hills, can continue to cause pain long after they were first inflicted. Essentially, loss lives on. He's perhaps also showing that the more we dwell on those feelings, the more they seem to hurt. So here, what I'm doing now is I'm going to show you what my essay looks like, and that's my beginning. That's my link to the question. Now I'm, what's the word? I'm many things. I mean, I love academia, and I love teaching, and I love English, and sometimes I like using really big, smart words, but you certainly don't have to in yours. But if you do see something that's sort of big and smart, don't worry about it. If you're not clear on it, steal it if you think you can use it in your writing. But crucially, it's a step-by-step process. Step 1, answer the question, show you understand what's being asked. Step 2, introduce the writer's ideas. So here we've got a few writer's ideas in our chat. He won't move on. Sometimes the past doesn't really matter, but sometimes remembering the past can hurt. So I've written, this idea is best captured when he writes, that is the land of, sorry, I've moved on too quickly. The writer's ideas are at the end of this first paragraph. I'm a terrible teacher. Essentially, loss lives on. He's perhaps also showing that the more we dwell on those feelings, the more they seem to hurt. That's the writer's ideas bit. Apologies. Now we're going to look at the quote. The idea is best captured when he writes, that is the land of lost content. So that's the quote that I've gone for. The quote that I think is the best one to write about. The quote with that image in. That is the land of lost content. So that's what I'm going for. I introduce it. This is the best quote. And then I start writing about image. So the first bit of the essay is pretty straightforward. You link to the question, you show you understand it, you talk about the writer's ideas, and then you quote. And then simply you go through image, shape, sound, as I'm about to show you. Like I said, I love using fancy words. You don't have to. If you like them, steal them. Okay? Great art and great analysis is always about stealing other people's ideas and adding them to your own. So, this idea is best captured when he writes, that is the land of lost content. Here the land is personified as being not only without content, satisfaction and peace, but a place that once had all those things but is now deprived. It is as if the place is defined by its loss. It can never change its fate. Okay? So those are my ideas on image. Then I move on to shape. Throughout the line, Housman employs predominantly monosyllabic lexis to stress, words. Throughout the line, Housman employs predominantly monosyllabic words to stress how blunt and unchangeable that feeling of loss has become. It's almost like he's staring at an obstacle he cannot navigate around. And then, of course, I'm moving on to sound. This feeling of unconquerable loss is emphasised throughout the line with the forceful plosive T that appears throughout and poignantly at the end of the last word, exaggerating finality. Housman is showing that the permanence of loss repeats and can define experience. So this answer, even though it's pretty wordy, is actually very calculated and very process orientated. When answering a question in English, you have to think about writing about image, shape and sound. And before you write down, you look at that example of literature and you start noting down. So where's the image? Okay, there's the image. What might that mean? Where's the shape? What does that mean? What's the sound? What does that mean? And once you ask yourself, what are his ideas? And those students who have taken part today, you very clearly have an understanding of what his ideas are. That pain and loss is very challenging. Then you're going to be able to write about this poem and write about it in really thorough ways. You can see when I'm writing about the image in that second paragraph there, I say 2 or 3 things about it. If you look at it again, this idea is best captured when he writes, that is the land of lost content. Here the land is personified as being not only without content, satisfaction and peace, but a place that once had all those things but is now deprived. So I've written there 2 or 3 things about the image. Then I say 2 or 3 things about the shape, and then I say 2 or 3 things about the sound, and then I link back to the question. This is how to write about English literature, and it is how to write about English language. And it's a step-by-step exploration. As time goes on, you're going to know more and more about what these different features mean, and we'll explore them in greater detail. But this is what to write. Those students who I can remember not knowing how to begin or how to start, this is how you do it. You think about language in these 3 ways, because that's how language works, and then you write about it in those 3 ways. And as you practice, your essays will not only improve, but will really punch at the highest weight, really, because it'll show intelligence, pragmatism, thoughtfulness, intellectual capability, and it'll show that you can look at language in lots of different ways. So, as I said at the beginning, this lesson was an amalgamation of what we've been doing for the last couple of weeks, the last 3 weeks. And these lessons are going to appear over lockdown. This is how to write an essay. This is how to take everything we've looked at and put into the boiling pot. But please use it in your own studies at home. Please use it in your English essays at school, because it's a really proven method. And I've seen students that haven't been able to get anything past a grade 3 use this and suddenly get grade 6, just as I've seen students that are just getting a grade 5 go on to get a grade 9. This is how to nail your GCSEs, and when the penny dropped for me, changed the way I taught, and it certainly helps a lot of kids get the grades they need. So I'd like you to have a go. You don't have to, of course, but try having a go. Have a go with the same question, but perhaps pick out a different quote. This is quite a complicated homework task, and it might take you a week or longer, but it's the essential skill in your GCSE. It's the only skill in GCSE literature, and it's almost half the skill, if not more, in your English language papers. So thanks for those that have attended today. Of course, you can watch this on Rewind. Please continue to like and subscribe. Visit our Facebook page and our crowdfunder page. And of course, email in if you've got any questions or we can help with anything during the pandemic. So our email address is lockdownlessons@skoolcornwall.com. Please get in touch, and above all, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. All the very best. Have a great weekend. Bye.